Best people, it's a crypto sniper. Can't even spit it. How are you guys doing? An update on crypto markets, just to say hi. What have we got here? This was our North Turkey stream to you a while ago. How I was highlighting that Binance is an outperformer generally, in spite of this being a dull, potentially bearish period. Around about the time we did this was in June. That's a better part now. August, what's that? 2.5, 3 months, I don't know. You do the maths. You can see that premiered on June. And we were around about then. Binance was at 297. Now, I want to be clear on a couple of things. We are not. We're discussing relative strength inside an overall heavy market that is possibly in a continuation pattern for downside, but is getting a little bit of relief rally. And we highlighted during this period that Binance particularly, but there were other videos on Binance exclusively. I've just found the most recent one, and how Sol was suffering, particularly at the expense of Binance. At the time, Sol was at around 39 and Binance was at 297. We did a number of cross-market valuations in the process, talking and discussing the relative strength in a difficult set of market conditions of the Binance token. And this is a token that is probably the most, I won't say most disliked. I think Ripple sometimes wins that competition. But as a centralized exchange first, before the token came, it seemed very much like the token of that centralized exchange. And of course, we were saying this during a period that actually there was quite a lot of regulatory pressure was being put on Binance on a number of levels, but the charts were showing us that it is showing relative strength to others. And we were covering that roundabout here in this video, Legacy, showing that this actually is showing some degree of relative strength. But what does that mean? What does that mean? What is our view overall on crypto, and how's Binance done on that relative strength call? So let's pivot over to the markets and let's talk about Bitcoin, the God market first. So Bitcoin's at 24,000. So the title for this is Rising Wedge Crypto. So what happens when you pause is depending on how long you pause. You might initially start out looking like you were making a flag, which was our first assessment when you were around there. Then you popped out the flag and you go, okay, that's not following. The suspicion is keep on keeping on, remember. So same here, was going like this. That was I've spoken about the 3 flags, this being the fourth. That structure broke up a little bit. And what happened is the dollar pulled back on the dollar indice for a while longer. So what you ended up going, okay, we're still not trusting this for bottoming. And we'll get into some of the reasons why in a minute. But essentially what you're seeing is relative underperformance truly by Bitcoin, given the fact of how weak the dollar has been since running the 109 on Dixie. So the dollar has run 109, traded right the way back to 105s. And in actual fact, the USD JPY ran 139 and that trade right the way back to 130. And this is what crypto's thrown down. Now, before I drill into how this continuation to downside pattern might still, on balance of probability, be the play, I want to just remind you of watching the big market timeframes. So while we're here, let's do that, draw and put you back on monthly. And remember this, you get so much more of a view. In fact, we don't even have to go that far on a weekly view. This huge sell-off so far has bounced this far with the dollar retreating 109 down to 105 on the dollar index. And that's against very weak euro and a very weak yen. And it's still retreated against those currencies. And so far, just if we take the final major move on the weekly, we don't even count that far more extended period of rally. This is small beer. This is a very small beer. Yes, some of you might have made stolen 5% in a day even, never mind a week, if you'd chosen the right tokens and got into them. But that's on the lower time frame trading. Our channel is not about nicking pennies in front of steamrollers on short time frames. There's plenty of other channels for that. We are trying to guide you what's the major next move. So we like to be on the high time frames. And then when we position with the flow of the river, we get a lot more luck. So right now, this has still all been a Tether stablecoin period for us. And it continues to be. So what's going on? What could be the structure since the flag possibility kind of got a bit ragged? It still could be a flag, by the way. There's many ways to draw a flag like that. Like that. You can still have it as a flag potentially. But at the same time, that's only really one touch over there, down there. I'm not too happy with that. Maybe you would have drawn it more like that. And it can still be that flag. But I'm also looking at what it's done more recently. Because what tends to happen when you have a flex out of a particular possible range and you do something different is that you start setting up a different structure. So if I just, again, say, you could still argue there's some degree of flag in there. But I would prefer to look at what's gone on more recently. So we had a more grounding period that was pretty lame. This period. That was when it looked very flaggy, marginally higher highs. More recently, with the dollar weakness, you have had a little bit of buying along the lows. But what you've not really had is the major significant new highs. And in fact, this marginally higher high is a concern for me over the previous move. The fact that you got pulled back so hard and you're grinding. And this brings me to the current rising wedge structures. In fact, we can extend these back. And instead of just being about the more recent price behavior, you can draw your wedge like that. That in essence is probably the most accurate framing I have in terms of pattern-based structure, given what we have. And we keep getting more information. So it's a bit like, you know, sometimes technical analysis can be three blind men feeling up an elephant, and one's at the tusk, one's at the tail, and one's got the leg. So as you get more pieces of information, you get to piece the puzzle together. And as we've, so the first blush is often the worst guess, because it's kind of like, it's kind of like, any game where you start, which is a guessing game, you get more accurate as you get feedback. And we're continuing to get feedback yet. So this is not dominance. This is not typical bottoming. If you look at the rate of descent that occurred here on the crypto, this is not unwinding that downside with vigor. You have to agree with that. Also, you should have seen that, as I've already mentioned, the dollar has retreated from 109 to 105, and that's against weakening currencies, euro and yen being large parts of that, and the pound, which is far from scintillating performer itself. So why is crypto so weak? This is actually nothing more at the moment to be treated than nothing more than a relief rally. And that's got a lot to do with Fed and data. By the way, we have a good candle today for crypto, a reasonably good one. And why did that happen? So let's just show you why we've continued to say macro is the boss and god market of all of crypto, including crypto, who's the localized god of the other tokens. America's CPI number was the next major date. And this is all about Fed and inflation. These guys are running the asset prices of the globe, including crypto. Doesn't matter where you trade it, in Taiwan or on the North Pole. The CPI number was expected at 0.2 as a forecast, came in flat 0. The forecast for the core CPI, so that are real elements that are foundational, came in at 0.3 on an expected of 0.5. So what this is actually communicating today, and the reason why you'll be up today, is that the Fed is winning the war against inflation. Woo! That's it. It's coming down. Told you those stat numbers are coming down. And we have been vigilant on conquering inflation. J Powell, etc. So they'll take a bow. They are winning out. We are continuing to sharpen rates. We cannot be tighten rates. We cannot be lackadaisical. We've got to put this inflation to bed, etc., etc. Now, a lower number on inflation points to a less need for greater aggression on tightening. So what that means is you're closer to stimulus if you're not tightening as much. And that is what crypto wants. Crypto needs the juice of crazy, insane, unleashed liquidity to go up right now. And all its best moves have occurred during periods of reflation on the macro, especially since the macro has become the dominant theme in crypto, which is more recent over the original foundational first 4 or 5 years. So that is why you're having a green day today, and it will echo through every crypto. We'll go to Ethereum, we'll go to a couple of other alts as well as part of this. You're up today, but you're up off a basing ascending grind line such as that, and that is the current structure you're making. So yes, you can go a tiny bit higher, and by the way, there are exceptional cases. They're not the most common, they're the rarity. But in certain circumstances, you can even melt up out of a rising wedge. I don't feel this is one of them. But if we had a calamity on the dollar and it just spilled its guts against a lot of things, you could in fact have a pump, small return move possibly, and then a major a run up. And then that could be more beneficial if that was structural and that could be on the basis of, who knows what the news driver could be that. I'm not even going to sit and speculate. So we have a rising wedge concern on Bitcoin because the other two options is a pop out the top and a dip down. So sometimes it just runs the technical level of where all the stops will be put and then sells off for anyone who was short. So the guy at a stop there gets taken out. And the straightforward version where it just comes down. So it will go up to the other side. It won't pop out the top. It will come back and just go down without the pop out the capping ascending grind line. So there you have it. That's what's going on Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is the god market for the others. And even in a very strong Ethereum, so Ethereum's been strong, it's got a lot of news behind it. Let's just pivot straight to Ethereum first before we have a look at the others. You can still see the DNA there. You can still see the DNA of the rising wedge right in there. Whoop, that's a nice big cokey. Let's try that one again. So I think you know what I'm about to draw here. Like that. So there's still a rising wedge there. It's got a more traditional localized low, it must be said, for Ethereum. So you kind of had a W bottom in here. 1, 2. It's had a lot of, interest due to events. In fact, it's more than a W. You could argue almost a triple bottom there. And you get one channel range up from there. So, that distance, just you would have, had you wanted to be jumping in the markets, you probably would have had a target somewhere around there as well, which you're now grinding higher. Now, if it were to get up to, say, a neckline level like here, you start to have the potential for reversal structures. Say 2000. You could say, okay, we got a first left shoulder, then a spill. We could grind up to the 2000, have a little bit of a pullback, and then you could potentially have a bigger time frame structure for possible reversal. However, Ethereum's going to battle to do this all on its own. You'll see even though it's higher and it's recovered significantly more than Bitcoin. So if you were to take its low, it actually traded below $1,000. But if you took, for most of the time, the most of the candle body's time, it was 1,000 at its low, and it's gone to 1,800. That's an 82%. It's still not a bad climb for those that were prepared to take the chance on the merge and all the news and all of that. For crypto, it's not bad. But your challenge is, what if you come back and you dip back down, bounce maybe on this target point, and you go down? And what would be doing that? Well, if Bitcoin is coming down, it's going to be super hard. If the asset category is going down, because it's not just about if Bitcoin's going down, it will be macro making Bitcoin going down that will also lean on Ethereum making it go down. And you're in a rising wedge, and most options in those circumstances, and it's not in a funnel of a HVF where you can expect a third option, the melt up. It's more likely to be a sell-off event coming at some point. It would be amazingly positive if it could grind all the way to the neckline. Then the sell-off event might be nothing more than a right shoulder. But this is probably one of the most positive recent cryptos, and it's still going to get dragged down by the rest. So we will show you how this rising wedge structure is in the DNA of most of what we are seeing. A couple of other tokens we've updated you on regularly would be the likes of Maker. So again, if I have a look at Maker, my assessment is that so where at one point on Bitcoin you might have been flagging and now you're kind of squeezing a little bit more. This has probably never really made a flag, even suggested one, but it's getting a rally period currently. It could be drawn in other ways as well. Without yesterday's take, you might have thought, well, those are two levels. I don't feel that. I think we've had a more extended period up here, and your highs are there. So I'd still feel that the dominant pattern structure of this is a rising wedge. So you've had a couple of periods where you had an up period, and they were always followed, bouncing around our splitter, supporting, little attempt to get away, spilling, coming up to the splitter, just running, spilling. Strong move again like that first one, can't hold on to all of it, comes back down, squeezing around, and this is a moderate up day. This is a moderate up day on quite big CPI news that is dovish for the dollar. That means the dollar is going to get softer generally. There's going to be less tightening. There's going to be less benefit to hold dollars. This is a big rest for, our USD Hong Kong dollar peg came off a little bit. A lot of things got a bit of respite. The euro's gone up to 1.03. It ran parity. So now the euro is back up a little bit. All of these things are happening. So Maker is a rising wedge structure as well. So let's have a look at something else. And this is really just proving to us that, what's good for the boss is generally what the rest of the tribe are going to have to eat. This is really just assertion of God markets again. So this guy really looks sick to me. I mean, it's having a good day today. But that's still really even in potential flag category, that one. But you could also argue, okay, what about a rising wedge in there? Like that. And then I take that lower line away. It's actually so unimpressive off its lows, and that was because it was one of our favorites for shorts. It's just been a poor relative performer in a downside market. It's not rallied. Compare that to Ethereum. Ethereum's put on 87% roughly from its absolute lows. You didn't buy them at the absolute lows, but still, it's still a reasonable performance from its absolute lows. You could have maybe caught 40% of that, and it still would have been a good run. Again, lower time frames, I would have considered that high risk. We're not in it. So Elrond, rising wedge. Tezos, you could almost leave the same structure in there. I mean, go and draw these for yourselves. Put our slipper on, and that's literally, our splitter is the spine of this piece of price behavior. Most of your hanging period, hanging, low vol, hanging, little bit of churn, all around, bounce off the splitter, bounce off the splitter, bounce off the splitter. That is rising wedge material. Now, given the late stage of this bear, I think it's quite late stage. I don't think we early doors bear. Otherwise, we're going a lot lower. It doesn't have to have a big fall. In fact, this low here, it's not that far away from that one. That doesn't mean it. That doesn't mean it can't spill violently and go well below. But we're not calling an extreme crash necessarily. It can just have a breakdown and come down to these levels. So to me, it's still got more work to do for bottoming. It's still got more work to do for bottoming. So you've looked at Tezos, you've looked at Elrond, you've looked at Maker, and these are not anything else but rising wedge. And we looked at the strong Ethereum. So let's go back to the token that we suggested that is largely not popular, particularly Binance, that at, if you recall the video I was showing you, it was 297 at the time. You can still see the Binance now. We've moved on a bit. It was 297 and Sol was 39. There you go, 297. So it's kind of small at the time. But we said relative strength, Binance is technically showing it is relatively stronger than all the others. So say you said, Francis, I hate your bearishness on crypto. I don't want to be part of that, but I like the value you add technically. I'm not going to sell out of crypto. I want to be in, I want skin in the game. I'm going to move to who, but I think your technical analysis spot on. I'll take the Binance tokens. I'll get out of everything else. I'll be in Binance. How would you have done? Well, you know that 5th of June, you would have bought at 297. And actually, today, it's better. So let's have a look at that coin market cap as well while we're at it. Just bring it in and we'll also pivot to the charts. Let me take that off, that pink box. Binance, 332. So actually, Binance is up over 10%, around about 12% if you had held it for that 2.5-3 month period. And its market cap is around 53,000. The next behind it is actually Ripple at 18. This is a huge void as a percentage. You know, Ethereum is approaching half Bitcoin by market cap. Not quite, but that's about 40% of Bitcoin. There's a big lump between the tethers and Binance and Ethereum. That's about 4x, but there's another really big lump. And then you sit with two at 18K. Cardano, XRP, and then you've got another fiat at 18K, while Binance is still hanging tough. Now, I remember you had Binance, and then quite close to it, you had Cardano, Solana at one point, and then further back, you even had DOT, also at one point, right under it, knocking on its door. And dare we forget Luna as well, which is no more. All knocking on its door quite close behind Binance. Now Binance is a 53 billion and the nearest one is 18. One we also warned might be worthy of accumulation and holding, but it's the nearest one. And all of Cardano, Solana were all north of XRP. They were all here. In actual fact, XRP also to a small degree has relatively overperformed. Polkadot was usually the weakest, but there was a period when it was in that threesome, foursome, big guys that were around 60, 70, and at one point even 80 billion market cap at the bullish peak highs. So what we've shown is that Binance has been a relative strength outperformer, and that was one of a few videos I did highlighting you don't like this coin, but it is probably your best hold if you've decided to be in crypto. Now, pivoting here, it's at an up day. In terms of this, it is possible that we say, okay, we've got around a 330 neckline level going on here. It's a rather fat Koki I've drawn. But if we continue to have weakness on the dollar, this could be, and I want to highlight how this period has become a lot more high momentum upside. This was a channel upside for a bit, and then it kicked on. That would be a head. If you were to rest after running, say 340, you could put a much smaller little right shoulder in if we had a little stab, and you could be in reversal territory for this one. And it's closer to it than even Ethereum, which has been strong itself. So Ethereum has been strong, and it's a big market cap. And as I pointed out, it's about 45% of Bitcoin at the moment. It is outperforming Bitcoin. We can take a look at that FBTC. But Binance is actually on the doorstep of making a potential reversal structure and pressing on higher. And I would argue it's the hardest one to squeeze into a rising wedge, but there has been aggressive buying under this Binance fella. So your rising wedge is far steeper, and this is a great day for it. A little look one way. It wanted to sell off, then the news on the dollar came in, and as I've already highlighted, you've got that potential neckline. So Binance has been an outperformer, as we have suggested, in a very difficult set of markets. We've said most people can't help themselves. They want to chase their favorite alts. It's better that you be out over the macro period. And we've been saying that since 55K Bitcoin, and you've had a number of sells on that. And we actually had our last HVF on Sol make 260. So let's have a look at some of those cross pairs. Binance against Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin's been a bit underwhelming. And for me, until the boss starts singing, it usually leads its way out of recoveries. And this was one of the charts we showed you. 2021, big surge. And then we highlighted that there was a structure here. There it was. Now, I drew this chart a long, long time ago. It was part of videos before the one I've just shown you that I'd have to go further back to find, where we were emphasizing Binance. And I haven't updated this. There was your third high. There's an HVF break. In actual fact, it's our opinion that unless something dramatic happens, we're going to see 0.156 Binance to Bitcoin. So it's coming up to a possible target rest point, but there's going to be a little bit more for Binance to give during this period against Bitcoin. That's a good performance in a difficult set of circumstances. And this is the value of relative strength. So had you wanted to hold, Binance was your hold. We have fund managers in our community that have to be in crypto, that running crypto funds. It's incredibly valuable if you have to hold a minimum percentage of crypto to still fulfill your mandates and not have everything in crash, to be in the token that's not dying in relative strength terms, and is actually up since June during a period where Bitcoin was 29K, is now 24K. So had you held the Bitcoin at 29, it's fallen to 24. Had you held the Binance at 297, it's gone up 10% in an environment that Bitcoin shed 15%. That is alpha. That is valuation up. And I know those percentages don't sound exciting to crypto kiddies, but that is very, very important on relative performance. If you understand that, click a link. Go to themarketsniper.com. 3 W's, themarketsniper.com, and book a call. If you want to be holding crypto regardless and you want to be a hodler, relative strength assessment is one of the best things we do, and it's quite clear that we have mentioned Binance repeatedly in previous videos. You can go look at all of them. All our videos are still up. The good, the bad, the ugly, the wrong, the not so good. They're all there. And if we have a look at BNBF, now this is comparing two relatively strong, probably of the majors. Remember, we don't get sucked in to the tiny coins. That's where all the abuse of crypto people takes place. You're being told to buy a micro cap, and all the pump and dump little racketeers that have done it. Every little soul that is being paid to shill something. This is something we don't do. We share real best value that we know, which won't always be correct, but with genuine intent. We're not making a dollar by telling you to get into some really light coin and you're holding up the other end. And there's a lot of that skullduggery. Please don't be scammed. Anyway, rounded bottom against Ethereum. Quite clear to see if you like. And very much a floor that came in around the 12.25%. That's meant to be 12.25. It just dropped there. And you can see it squeezing lower, marginally lower lows. How many times do we warn you that that could be a point of turn? And then a failure to make a new low. And then upsy daisy. And many people will be shouting cup and saucer. You can do that if you want. It's better if it gets a lot higher if you want that. That was quite a super spike. But this is actually showing Binance has relative outperformance. Currently, for the time frame under the review, you know, we're talking since the bottom here of Binance Ethereum at the cusp of 2021. So for the January 21 to where we are today. That's a good 18 months. It's more than that. It's a year and 8 months. So it's roughly 20 months. You have quite clear indication that for now, and that's on quite a strong Ethereum, that Binance is still relatively outperforming it. Let's have a look at Binance dominance. So this is all crypto. It's not just Bitcoin. It's not just Ethereum, although they will be the biggest parts. That's why it looks more like the Bitcoin setup. But it's quite clear for us that we are looking at around 6.12 for Binance dominance. Let me just say that again. You're watching a channel where someone has said, if you have to and you want to be in, the relative strength is in Binance. It's eating soul. It's one of our headlines. And it's my favorite. It was bigger than any of the others as a favorite. ADA slipped a fair amount. Hold this one. You're going to go, if target is met, right here to 6.12 dominance. If the dollar continues to get weak, and it has a longer period, we still think we're going to get a super surge of dollar strength at some point. That's going to be damaging. We've got a lot of macro effects. But let's say we're wrong on that. Dollar's topped. Let's say there's going to be an extended period of weakness, maybe 6-9 months before that, what we think is happening. Instead of being a short spell, let's say it takes a while. We could absolutely be expecting things to change too soon. And we could be 100% wrong on that. So if the dollar's not the headwind at the moment, and there's going to be rallies, you've got a chart where I'm saying to you, Binance is going to continue to gain ground against Bitcoin and Ethereum and most of the other tokens. Now, there could be some totally small crap coin that does 400% from, a 500,000 market cap or a 1 million market cap. This is majors with liquidity that you can get out of, that there's real buy. This is not me giving you, shilling my bags and forcing you into a low liquidity token that you're trapped in and I'm getting out at your expense. Like so many of these people that disappoint me in the crypto space. This is a token that's very liquid. I couldn't push the price if I tried either direction. You can get in and out and is a macro overperformer. So just to also highlight this point, 4.3, and this is something we discussed in our community at level as well. Had you got in at 4.3, you could be getting this information sooner. Go to themarketsniper.com. Truly, if you can't find a way to make it value, then we've failed you. You could have been in at 4.3% Binance dominance, and you'd now be at 4.8, and you'd be waiting for 6.2. Free views are now getting an invite sub 5%. We'll still get quite a bit for it, but you've left on the table a fair amount. But it's still turned out. And we did warn, although you don't get to hear it that often, and I don't have time to make tons of free view crypto videos at this current market time, where not so much setups are overtly clear, and the big time frames are we congesting, setting up continuation, are we reversing, are we pivoting? The macro at the moment is the God market, and that's the thing I want to get right. When you get the macro right and things start going your way, you will be able to make money in crypto as well, plus all the other avenues. So that's the Binance dominance. You've heard from me a call for north of 6%, 6.12% in Binance dominance. What price will Binance be in that case? I don't know. Why? Because if the whole crypto market dumps total market cap 15%, Binance might hold its price, go a bit higher, and then come back a bit and end up roughly where it is. And everything else could have gone down, and it can be 6%. So it doesn't mean buying Binance USDT is going to make you money. Binance against other tokens, however, that are looking weak, say my Maker token that I showed you, or other ones that are easier to trade, Binance against Sol, Binance against one or two of the others that maybe are a bit soft. If you know what to look for, maybe you could have a cross crypto trade. This is something we will take further forward in our community and continue to do on a lot of them. And then you can be crypto neutral. As long as your chosen token is going down less than the one you're short, and it's the one you're long, you make alpha. It's only a problem when the token you're shorting starts to run and the one you're long reverses. And in this environment of 4.3% to a potential possibility of 6.12, Binance is strong. And in actual fact, since our last video, had you got into Binance, you'd actually be 10% up. Would I want to sit in a highly risky crypto market for 10%? I don't think it's worth it for the volatility. What if the dollar had spiked, etc.? Who knows? Let's have a look at XRP because it's the next on the loop. I'm going to just turn the lights out there for a bit. It's very hard to say a low. Yes, you're at legacy levels around here, but you can still go to these levels. You can still go to those levels. And this move up has been, you know, it's more of a low, it's more of a losing of the volatility. I do feel that you know, some of the volatility that was in here is shaken out. The big candles have gone to a degree. But pop this back on log scale and then say you can't go any lower, and you could be making a mistake. You know, you could be making a mistake. There's your COVID low. Imagine they bring demand destruction. I've spoken of a winter of discontent. Guys, you're going to have GDP down. Hence why I'm not putting everyone back into crypto and saying, buy. Ethereum's up 80%. It's the lead alt. You should all be buying. Elongated muskiness is dumping his Tesla like never before. He's calling for recessions round about this time. I don't treat him as the best economist in the world, but I'm seeing how much he's selling of his Tesla stock. Maybe some nasty legal fees coming his way. But you're going to have Britain with power down outages. They're preparing you. They're telling you it already. Germany, other major European nations that will have potential power outages. You're going to have cold, wet weather, rain, and residential people getting cold and not being able to get onto the web. And they aren't practicing for that. It's the first time it's happening. They don't have the generators. They don't have the backup systems. You're going to have businesses that will be forced to close too because of power. In that environment, and God knows how far they might ramp up the monkeypox narrative and all sorts of others, most of the risks coming for the Northern Hemisphere winter are bearish. So again, go onto Odyssey and watch my Winter of Discontent for more details from supply chain, from all the things that they're queuing up for us for this winter in the Northern Hemisphere. My advice to you, by the way, is if you're in a cold, wet Northern Hemisphere winter country, is get the hell out of there. Get south. Get closer to the equator. And have yourself a summer instead. You can choose how many summers you have in life and how many winters with a bit of travel. I respect that not everyone can do that if you have kids in school and all of that, but those of you that can should. Okay, so let's have a look at XRP BTC. A pump, and it often has a pump, and then it dribbles down. A pump, dribbles down lower. Pump, this can dribble down lower here. So I can't say to you, I feel the same way about XRP that I do about Binance. Look at XRP against ETH. It's not performing near as well, and that's why you're sitting at 17K. 18 billion. 18 billion versus 53. So it has held up still better than Solana, a lot better than DOT, and better than ADA, because all of those were above it. But it's not a shooting star. It's not done the Binance work. Binance is your relative value hold if you feel you have to be in crypto, or you would like some exposure in case I'm wrong, early, things might take too long, etc. All the Binance crosses, and I'm not doing them all in this video, we'll do it in our community. I haven't done it by Binance Sol and Binance all the others, but I can tell you the chart looks better. I'll just show you Sol Binance super quick, why not, and as a gift. That is just an absolute spit down. And I actually prefer looking at it the other way around. But it doesn't give it to you. So you have to use it on the upside down. There we go. We'll have to try the upside down chart. See if it loads. I'll leave it to play around. But you can do the cross analysis for yourself. And technical structures we are getting is Binance is going to dominate Bitcoin. Binance is doing better than Ethereum, and it has on its Binance dominance a 6.12 target, and it's still sub 5. What more do you need to know? But if you trade it against the dollar, you can still get to 6.12 and have gone backwards. So be careful. Okay, that's the main thrust of this. Still don't want to trust crypto generally. Bitcoin is the god. Yes, there's a few that are moving, but actually they could all be stopped in their tracks if we have a nasty event. And I would warn you against what is coming for winter. Yes, you could get that rarity, a burst out the top of a rising wedge. You could get that rarity. I just, in light of what's coming, I'm not sure the news is going to be that great for the North. And GDP numbers go down. People lose jobs. If power is off, you don't pay staff. You lay them off. They can't work. If this is going to be the new mean. Or you reduce shifts. If you're a car manufacturer and you normally squeeze 3 shifts in a day, you're working night, day, and you have 2 shifts daytime and 1 night shift, 8 hours a time. You suddenly have power off. Well, that's a third of your production. If you have a power off just for 4 hours, you can't do a full shift. You don't want to do a half shift. You're gone. So this is very destructive forces. There are a lot of very dangerous recessional and depressional and deflationary based asset contractions that could be associated. And there's a lot going on that is risk to the downside. So that is my update for you on that. Be careful generally. However, if you want to trade or you want to have something in, to take the relative strength, and you can also trade it against weaker tokens. That way you are neutral even if the crypto market goes down. Remember, we have a community in reset times setting you up to not only build wealth, but to protect that wealth so that you can see out the reset times and come out in rude great health and wealth, which is both mental, physical, and financial. To do that, book a call at the 3 W's, themarketsniper.com. We look forward to chatting to you, and we do have some availability for taking new community members. Bye for now. I hope you enjoyed the update.